This is a rough question.
I get where you're going at. It helps to imagine, like, pretending like you went through that on your own. Thank you! And, like,
it helps that there was a lot of, like, there were interviews on her. She just passed away, like, recently. So there was a lot of interviews and there were stories online that you could read about. And it's, like, firsthand encounters. And it really helped to, like, just relate the experience that they had. So you just had to take the emotion and just, like, put it into it.
And it's great that we're, like, so close in the first place, too, because then we can kind of, like, connect as, like, each other being oneself.
It helps to, like, kind of go off of each other, too. Like, how we each, because we're the same thing.
I act a little different based on what I hear you acting. Yeah. Because it's, like, that was me as a kid, so obviously I'm still going to have that somewhere inside of me. So, like, yeah.
Well, for me, so Kirsten and I in the show were sisters, and in real life we're kind of like sisters. So I just kind of think about what would it be like to be in this situation with her, really, and that really helps convey the emotions for me.
Yeah, we also both, when we went to Theater Fest, we watched a show about World War II, and so just paying more attention to the history behind it was really helpful, and yeah, just seeing the connections between the characters and like why what you're saying is important, all of that helps you get into character.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think a lot of times, like, teenagers hear about this kind of stuff in school, so they don't always, like, I think we were getting, like, obviously it's still a secondhand experience, but we were getting these letters, and it was our grandmother's letters, so we were experiencing it at a more personal level than just hearing about it, like, at school and being like, oh, that happened, when really this happened to someone you're related to.
Yeah, like, because my grandmother grew up during World War II, so hearing her stories, and I think just taking it in as if she were Jewish and she were going through that. So I think having two perspectives and then getting to have that other perspective of a girl whose grandmother went through it, I think that it helps knowing about stuff like that and being informed about it, because then you have more of that start to kind of push yourself towards being more emotional towards those things. Yeah.
I don't know, for me, it was more like, I wanted to focus less on being, like, a Nazi and more on just, like, my surroundings, as in, like, I kind of talked about it with, like, the people who were playing, like, the Jewish children and, like, everybody else, and I focused more on being, like, as I was their friend, I was just, like, maybe I could just, like, pretend like I'm bossing them around or, like, shooing them around, and I don't necessarily want to be like, I'm a Nazi and you're, like, a Jewish kid. Like, I mean more like, I'm your friend, and I'm just gonna pretend like I'm, like, bossing you around. I'm gonna, like, throw you around here. I'm gonna do as much as I can in order to make it seem like I don't like you, but in reality, we're really good friends, you know.
Awesome. Knowledge of the characters.
Well, I read the book, the play over break, and whenever I read those shows, I just make annotations, and then I go and watch the actors before they even have costumes or hair or anything a lot of times, and see what they're doing then, and make notes based off of that. And then using that and what I knew of, like, the history of the time, a lot of the times it takes a lot of research to do these types of shows, just because obviously I don't know what they were wearing during World War II. I took all that, and then I make a big Google Doc that has details for everybody and all their costumes, and then I did things like, one of the days I just spent working on layers, because a lot of the prisoners lose their layers as the show goes on, because they're getting in worse condition, and they lose things like their hair gets a little messed up, or like if they have a bow in, they lose a bow. Yeah, I just took what I knew of the characters and what I knew of the era and how I knew everyone in the show is and how they acted, and I know a lot of the times I know what they're comfortable in, and I mixed it all together, and this is what I always come up with.